Chapter 26, Mishnah 4. The Mishnah now discusses the Tumah status of leather sandals, slippers, shoes, and bottles. The opening cases of the Mishnah deal with a sandal that has Tumas Midras. If one of the side flaps of a sandal tore off and the owner fixed it, the sandal remains Tameh with Tumas Midrash. When the sandal flap broke and the rest of the sandal remained intact, the sandal was still usable. Thus, it remained Tameh even without being fixed. If the second side flap then tore off and the owner fixed it, the sandal is tahor from Tumas Midras. Even though the sandal never lost its ability to function, it is no longer Tameh with Tumas Midras. When the second side flap tears off, since the parts that remain of the original sandal cannot function as a sandal on their own. However, while the sandal is no longer Tameh as an Avhatuma with Tumas Midras, it is Tameh as a Kli that came into contact with a Midras, which is a Rishon L'Tuma. The reason for this is that when the first side flap tore, the sandal remained Tameh with Tumas Midras. Thus, when a new side flap was attached to the sandal to replace the torn one, that new side flap became a Rishon, since it is touching the sandal that is Tameh with Tumas Midras. When the second side flap breaks and the sandal loses its Tumas Midras, the rest of the sandal remains a Rishon because it is connected to the new side flap, which is also Rishon. Since, as a rule, anything attached to something that is Tameh is also Tameh. A case where the above does not apply. If he did not manage to fix the first side flap before the second one tore off, the sandal is completely tahor. A sandal becomes unusable when both side flaps are torn off. Thus, it is no longer tameh. The Mishnah discusses the law when other parts of a sandal tore off. If a sandal's heel piece tore off, or if its toe piece was removed, or the toe piece split in two, it is tahor. That is, the sandal is no longer tameh because it is unable to function as a sandal, since it will no longer stay on the foot. The Mishnah now discusses a slipper that had become tameh. A solyam, a simple slipper that tore in any way, is tahor, because any tear makes it unwearable. The Mishnah now discusses a shoe that had become tameh. Regarding a shoe that tore, if it can no longer contain most of the foot, it is tahor. The Mishnah discusses the law of a shoe that is on the foot-shaped. The Mishnah discusses the law of a shoe that is on the foot-shaped form known as a last, upon which a shoe is fashioned. Regarding a shoe that is on the form after it has been completed, Rabbi Eliezer rules it tahor. Rabbi Eliezer holds that a shoe is not considered finished until it is removed from the mold. Thus, while on the form, it does not become tameh. But the sages rule it capable of becoming tameh. Since it is complete, it is considered finished, and it is capable of becoming tameh even while it is on the form. The Mishnah discusses leather bottles that developed a hole large enough to make them tahor. All leather bottles that developed a hole and are thus tahor and were then tied up in order to close the hole remain tahor, i.e. they cannot become tameh. Tying up a hole as opposed to sewing it up is considered a temporary fix, since the knot will eventually be undone. This is with the exception of Arabian knots that are very difficult to untie and are thus viewed as permanent. A leather bottle closed with an Arabian knot is therefore now considered a kli that is capable of becoming tameh. Rabbi Meir says those leather bottles tied with a temporary knot, i.e. a knot made with the intention of undoing it in a short time, are tahor, even if the knot was an Arabian knot. But those tied with a permanent knot, i.e. a knot meant to stay in place permanently, are tameh, even if the owner tied a regular knot. Rabbi Yossi says all tied leather bottles are tahor. A knot cannot cause a leather bottle to become tameh, regardless of the type of knot used or the owner's intent.